Greetings. It's good to be with you for my Thursday at 3. And today I have a guest, Ben Howell, who is the chair of our Leadership Council. I'm so appreciative of you, Ben, and the time that you put in on behalf of our church, the sacrifice you make to hear and to listen and to guide us through these incredible times. And I just appreciate your friendship as well. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, David, thank you. It's great to be with you, and I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate our friendship as well.
I know your daughters are in college, and they started college last year in this kind of crazy pandemic isolation. Now they're back on campus. How's it going for them as they kind of reassert themselves on campus?
Hey, I appreciate you asking. Yeah, my twin daughters, Anna and Leah, are doing quite well. Thank you. Anna is a sophomore at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, and she's back on campus and living in the dorm again this year. So that's fantastic. And Leah is a sophomore at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and she is living in the dorm on campus this year, which she was living here in Central Florida with us last year. And doing everything online, but she's actually going to class and she's going to labs and everything. She's having a great experience, and we're just so happy that they're both on campus and experiencing college life more so than they were. Not 100% to where it was when you and I were in college, but they're getting there, and it's just a matter of time. Pray for continued movement in that direction.
That's gotta have been a loss, for them, and that kind of changed the schedule at the beginning. And I'm really, really glad that they're getting righted back into some of that normal college experience for their sake. And certainly pray God's blessing on them at this time, and all college students as they go through this season. So I know that the Leadership Council recently came to a decision about our Sunday morning worship schedule. And it's something that we have been talking about for several months, and just wanted to know if you could fill us in a little bit on some of the preparation, some of the listening that went into to make that decision.
Yeah, thank you for that. David and I led listening sessions regarding the Sunday morning schedule because there are a lot of needs on Sunday morning, and we wanted to hear from those in the church family about their thoughts on what Sunday morning should look like. And we heard a number of different things. Key things that stood out to me were having both a traditional and a contemporary style of worship available for folks, and to have a dedicated time between worship services where folks could engage in Sunday school for kids or adults, as well as possibly starting small groups during that time between a contemporary and a traditional worship service.
And I appreciate you leading those Zoom meetings. That was helpful. We had several dozen per meeting that would come and give some feedback, and we also sent a church-wide survey out, I believe, and we looked at that, and that came back fairly divided about what the different interests were. I know that I talked to, as I know you did, a number of folks who I talked to, the number of folks who went to the 8 o'clock service in preparation, as well as to parents. And one of the things that I heard that was pretty clear was desire to have a designated Sunday school hour for people, regardless of what style of worship they went to. And particularly parents, the desire to be able to take their children to church and then go to Sunday school and not have to make a choice. I'm aware that years ago when we started the contemporary service, which was obviously a blessing, some of the Sunday school classes had to make a decision because it occurred during those hours. Am I going to go to church or to Sunday school? And so we're back now, maybe a decade or more later, saying, hey, we really want to put that back together. So that was really quite interesting, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of desires for a kind of a 3 to 4 hour window to fit a lot of different things in, and so it's a kind of a complicated question that we haven't really quite landed on for some time. So, what are some of the criterion that the council used to make their decision? How did they evaluate kind of the steps?
Well, we looked at what type of worship we could offer. That was the first thing, and then what type of um, Sunday school type opportunities do we currently have, and we're going to build off of what we currently have. And since the pandemic started, we've been running 2 worship services weekly, a contemporary service and a traditional service. And there's been time available since we reopened in November of 2020 for Sunday schools classes to come back online and to be present with each other. So we want to build off of that. That's the first thing the Leadership Council looked at, and then we looked at resources. And when we say resources, not only are we talking about clergy, but we're talking about our music ministry,
right,
and their capabilities. We're looking at volunteers,
right,
and the folks we have that are able to be there to help us have a successful worship service, because it takes a lot of people and to put together a successful worship service, and we want to make sure that we have all that. And what we came to conclude is that we're at pretty much capacity right now for what we can do in a worship service. We don't have the means when it comes to particularly volunteers to go to adding another worship service at this time. So the council came to a consensus that we keep the current schedule as it is right now, where we have 2 different types of worship services, and we have time between those 2 worship services for Sunday school classes and small groups to meet and to study and fellowship.
Yeah, I appreciate your conversation about volunteers. As a pastor, when they teach us in seminary, they talk about how worship really begins in the parking lot. A good worship service starts when you get out of your car and you're able to get into the church property and find a place to go and to be greeted and have bulletins, and it's all prepared for you, and you have the choir and you have the ushers ready and all these different volunteers that take place. It really is kind of a massive movement that takes place of dozens of people every week for each service. And so we are dependent on that. If we just showed up and, hey, there was one person coordinating all of that or 2 people on staff that was coordinating all that, it would not be conducive for worship. And so it is indeed one of the limiting lids of how we grow that number. As we come back more and more, we're seeing people come back more and more, and that perhaps that might change in the future. One of the things that, go ahead.
I was going to say, as an anecdote, to share with you on that is that I ran into someone from our church family at the Y yesterday, and she said, "Hey, I saw you in worship on Sunday," and I was like, "Yeah, I didn't get a chance to get over and say hey to you guys." And she says, "Yeah, it's the first time we've been back since the beginning of the pandemic," and I was like, "Wow!" And she's like, we looked at it as we got to start sometime.
Yeah.
And so we decided to start on Sunday. So, I think more and more people have that sort of thought and they take action on it. We might, revisit our Sunday morning schedule again in the future, just depending on the need and the resources that are available.
Yeah, I think it's a great question for the church to think about. What is the threshold? What are the needs? Is worship the central thing we do on Sunday morning even? I think one of the things we have to mention in this conversation is the online worship. I have people ask me fairly regularly, are we going to continue to do online worship? And they recognize that there's both a blessing and a sort of a challenge to online worship. The online worship actually is kind of neutral. It's kind of what we do with it that becomes the blessing and the challenge. And the blessing is it really kept us connected when we needed it. There was a season when we couldn't be together, and yet we could stay connected. And it's really a good tool to have to do that. And I'm glad we developed that. It also is a way for people to be introduced to our church, that today in this culture, we tend to look and visit churches online, check them out, see what they look like, and, before we go in person. And I regularly meet visitors who said, I've been worshiping you 3 or 4 weeks online, and now I'm coming. It also connects us with people that aren't in our own city. We have people worshiping from across the country. And so there's a blessing to that. The challenge, of course, is that it's easy to get into thinking online worship is the same thing as worshiping in person. And it's not. I mean, I can worship individually, but worship is not really meant to be done individually all the time. That there is a need to sit down with other people and create those relationships, particularly those that we might not ever want to. Online, we can only see people that we want to see and only hear people that we want to hear from, and are never challenged to grow beyond that. And so that's a challenge for us if that's all our study diet is about. It also creates a challenge for us to do more work to meet with people. I mean, I used to be able to come and have all of my friends there at this hour. I didn't have to work to be able to connect with them. They were already provided for me at this set hour. And now we have to do more coordination to have that fellowship with those that we want to fellowship with. And so it's kind of changed the landscape. And so my sense is that online worship will be with us, but we have to do some work about how we move beyond some of the challenges of it individually and collectively. Any thoughts on that, Ben?
Well, I know that's a great point, David. I know that the Leadership Council has begun having conversations about that. We met the first Sunday in December, and that was something that we did discuss for part of our meeting. And we'll be digging deeper into that when we meet after the first of the year, and there are folks on staff that are looking into this on our behalf. And we're hoping to have a more concrete idea at our January meeting on what that might look like.
Yeah, I appreciate, Ben, so much that you are very intentional in trying to listen to people. You could have gone into this decision without having feedback sessions or surveys or conversations. And you do want to hear from folks, and you do want to represent the church at large and all the multiple needs as a family. And so I'm grateful for you and the work the council is doing. And I love the story about starting somewhere. And I think all of us can start today to live into the new reality of what we're doing in worship together, and just take that as it comes. We're in this season of taking it as it comes. So thanks, Ben, for your time and for your leadership.
Thank you,
God
David.
bless.